Hey guys, welcome back to Star Wars Timeline. I'm your host, Ben. Today, I'm happy to present not one, but two interviewees. I'm joined here by Steve and Adam. Guys, I'm really happy to see you. We're going to talk about something interesting, and I think will give our audience a different outlook. We seem to come from generally the same generation, but from vastly different experiences when it comes to Star Wars. Now, Mr. Adam here is known as Red 5 Reviews, just reached his 125 subs. Congratulations, Adam. Guys, Adam does book reviews. He talks about his favorite stuff from both canon and legends. Definitely go check his channel out. I'll drop the links in the video description below. And Mr. Steve from CVB covers books. He covers collecting, which he's very passionate about, as well as podcasts with other Star Wars fans, and does show reviews as well. Guys, I'm super happy to see you both. How have you been?
Hey,
I'm doing great. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
we're both excited here. I'm really excited because I'm here with both of the people that influenced me to start my channel and gave me the courage. So this is like a real treat for me. But otherwise, I've been doing great. Thank you.
I'm doing great here as well, and great to be back on the channel, Ben. And Steve, I just wanted to say congratulations. I just saw you hit 130 subscribers, and thanks again, man, for having me on your channel recently.
Yeah, thanks, bro. I appreciate
Steve,
that.
130 subs. And this is going to be a very interesting experience for me, delegating between us three, and a learning experience. Like, hey, who talks next? What's going on? Who talks? I talk first, you talk first. We're going to have a little Kylo Ren moments going on there. Don't worry about it, guys. We have an interesting program for you. So what I wanted us to discuss today is, the topic is Star Wars fandom then versus now. You know, I wanted to take a closer look at how we react to Star Wars as kids versus how the adult generation responds to Star Wars. And we're going to take into account not just the movies themselves, but we're also going to talk about shows, collecting toys, books, you know, everything that is under the great umbrella of Star Wars. And, you know, I wanted to hopefully try to cover, maybe we'll jump ahead and not do it in linear space, but talk about the prequel trilogy, the original Star Wars, and of course, sequel trilogy. And once again, just a quick reminder, I want to quickly mention something that has to do with your fandom of books, toy collecting, video games, all of these experiences, how it was back then in a sweet and innocent childhood versus how it is today as adults, and not only us, how we see other fans respond to it today. And I think the mantra of this podcast is going to be, you can't step into the same river twice. Whether you consider the river itself never being the same again, right? River being obviously the Star Wars, or whether you are a changed person trying to step into the same experience and relive those glorious moments again. But it's just impossible because you are a different person. You bring a new perspective of it because of all of your life experiences. And to open up the first question, I want to kind of like have this, you know, Pandora's boxes, you know, that when Star Wars came out, 1977, A New Hope, that George Lucas created an experience unlike other before, that there was nothing quite like it ever. And this is my first question to each one of you. Or was there? You know, talk about the movies of the day that you personally enjoyed, that you grew up with. Steve, let's start with you. What were some of your favorites, and how did they stack up to Star Wars?
Oh man, there was a lot. Like my childhood, I watched a lot of movies. I mentioned before, my aunt, she worked at a video store, so we had like all our hands on, basically. You know, we could get whatever we wanted. So like Big Trouble in Little China, I watched that over and over again. The original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like that's classic. Like nothing's compared to that to me ever since, you know. So Gremlins, Critters, you know, there's even some of the horror things like Friday the 13th as I got a little older. But you know, there was a lot, and I don't think any of them quite stacked up to Star Wars. Like they were great, but to me, Star Wars is just, it's like it's just hope and like a safety blanket for me. It's helped me deal with a lot of things in life. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Adam, how about on your front? Were there other movie experiences that kind of like maybe set next to Star Wars on the same shelf and you regarded them on the same level? Or was it a similar experience to you as well, that it was like a complete peak of your, teenage entertainment?
Well, yeah, like growing up, I was kind of introduced to like the like kind of like what Steve said, the original 90s Ninja Turtles film. And then like I would always enjoy watching like me and my parents would always go to the video store as well and rent all of the classic 30s and 40s Universal monster films like Wolfman, Dracula, Frankenstein, and I grew up watching those and Jaws and Superman, Indiana Jones. But it's just I remember though, like I was completely mesmerized though by The Empire Strikes Back, and it was just like that was just I remember seeing that in theaters, and like all these other films like are amazing, but it's just like I just remember being like truly immersed in that experience.
Mm-hmm. How about moving away from big cinema, from theatrical experiences? What was happening on televisions that kind of captured your imaginations? Steve, for you, were there any kind of like cartoon shows or maybe live action TV series that were you completely glued to and were saying, this is kind of like Star Wars, I really want to check this out?
Yeah, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like I was a big fan of that growing up. Like that was probably like right there with Star Wars for me as a kid. But that was a different, that was a cartoon.
Right.
I didn't really watch none of the Ewok or the droids. Like I wasn't aware of them, back then. But so the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, obviously Scooby-Doo, classic, even G.I. Joe a little bit. I wasn't much of a Transformer, kind of kid. I was like, that's for robots or for somebody else. But it's kind of different now that obviously Star Wars has droids and robots and such. But so that's kind of mostly what I watched.
How about you, Adam? What was your?
Well, again, the 90s Ninja Turtles, but I also kind of got like really into watching the Batman animated series that came out, and like I just remembered hearing like the original theme from the Batman 89, like the score kind of like mixed in there, and that was one of like my favorite shows to watch, as well as the Spider-Man 90s animated series. And I do remember watching like I think his name was Captain Planet. Like it was a long time ago since I've seen that, but I remember like watching that. But like but yeah, that was mostly like as far as moving away from cinema, that was like where it was kind of at for me in the early 90s.
Yeah, I forgot one thing. Obviously, I can't believe I forgot this, but Dragon Ball Z, as I got a little older, like that was I just wanted to throw that name in there because it deserves to be there.
Yeah. And the reason I'm asking these questions, guys, obviously the big talk here is Star Wars, but I almost can't believe that, Star Wars lived in like isolation with everything else. And it was like the absolute peak. It stopped, entertainment everywhere else around the world. It is just nothing but Star Wars now. Like we must have interacted with it alongside other shows, movies, and other media, books, entertainment that kind of like we will wove into it and say, wow, this is doing something different. It has obviously spaceships and these cool laser swords and these space wizards, but there was also great, vast pools of imaginations that came from other sources. And I just wanted to see mix and match that. So far, you guys are both subverting my expectations, because my experience was vastly different. Because obviously, as a kid who grew up in Russia, former Soviet Union, we all were grown up, raised with Hollywood cinema as well. Obviously, alongside other European films, like the costumed French historical pictures, the British, detective stories, the Japanese samurai movies, popular 70s kung fu films. But for me, there were movies which were on par with Star Wars. It never kind of like stood out as the absolute peak of everything. I obviously loved it to death. I obviously watched those VHS tapes till they kind of like started like the player started chewing up the tapes and stuff, like, you would get mad over this. But just to bring out a few pieces of it that I remember from childhood vividly. First were Ray Harryhausen's original Clash of Titan 1981, and obviously his other Sinbad movies. Because watching it as a kid, when you can't quite figure out how the effect is made, you're not thinking of it in terms of an effect, it's just magic. how is this huge centaur is walking out there? You obviously know it's not a real person, but like how is he interacting with the actor? And all these crazy and fun excitement is happening. I just like acquired, the Blu-ray set of Harryhausen's movies, and they just hold just as much magic for me today. Another one was Disney's Flight for Navigator, which I saw actually in Soviet theaters. It was fully dubbed. It was glorious about this kid. It was a popular, as I discovered, a hugely successful Disney movie, also stateside here, but also in Russia. There was Wolfgang Petersen's Enemy Mine, 1985, from Dennis Quaid, which once again, it set the precedent that Star Wars was not the only player as far as science fiction was concerned. It was a much more intimate, personal story, but once again, you're dealing with spaceships and alien creatures and these exotic planets and physical props and sets. It just inspired me. It just was such a spark of imagination. As far as animation went, so in 1987, we moved from one part of Russia to another, and my dad got our first VHS player, which was a novelty. Back on the street, where we used to invite all the kids from the street just to watch, VHS tapes, and we now get to see our favorite movies. And one of the first cartoons that I saw there was He-Man. And dude, once he takes out that sword, I have the power, that's it. You are transported into a different world. And like, dude, hold on a second. Let me just shove Star Wars over here for a second. I gotta check this dude out. What's up with that talking cat? It was just so exciting. As you guys said it, Thundercats, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Gummy Bears, DuckTales, plus Soviet animation as well, which was very, very interested in educating the youth in world classic and literature and science fiction. And one of the popular ones was The Mystery of the Third Planet from 1981, which was an animated piece based on a science fiction work of a Soviet-era author. And those were also intermingled with Western media to kind of show us, hey, look, we have our own. You could check this out. So it's almost shocking to see that in Soviet Union and socialist, society, the horizons were quite open. We were, at least on the last waves of it, late 80s, we were introduced to all of that vast and interesting stuff. But I also wanted to check this out with you guys. What was the access to entertainment like? Talk about how did you get to your favorite media? Talk about the VHS rental store trips or TV programs that you had to anticipate and wait for weekly and check out in the newspapers. Oh, when is my next favorite show coming out? The library trips or the bookstores. Did you actually purchase your books back in the day? Adam, let's start with you. What was your experience like getting to your favorite things?
Well, to watch my favorite shows was looking through the TV guide, I checked out I remembered where some of the movies that I talked about were gonna I learned what channel they were gonna be on, so it was just weekly, just checking to see what was coming on, and also when it comes to going to the video stores, it was like that adventure of you go, but you're hoping that nobody else has checked it out. And but then you would get there and you would be excited that it was there, or you'd be like, oh, and then you'd have to learn that oh yeah, someone's not going to return it until Friday. So you just kind of had to find something else, especially when it came to video games, because especially Super Nintendo games at that point. But yeah, mostly for me, it was just viewing the TV guide, and then and growing up in the early 90s, it was also I was that Saturday morning cartoon kid, so it was just making cereal, popping in front of the TV and just kind of seeing what was on, and going from there.
Jumping ahead just a little bit, because I don't want to go off the script, it's just I want to have a living conversation with you guys. How would you stack up that childhood memory? Obviously there's some nostalgia sprinkled into it, but do you prefer the way that we used to get our supply of entertainment before versus today, where everything is right a click of a button and you got it all?
Personally, I enjoyed, it gave me a reason to get out of the house, and just kind of go go see what was actually available and everything. I mean, it's great that we can, like you said, click of a button, just be able to access some of those things, but it's also just I personally, it's recently I went to one of the video stores that we still have today, and it closed down, and it was just sad, because it's just life was basically saying that nope, you can't do that anymore. So that took away quite a bit of the magic for me because, again, personally, I just like to get out of the house to be able to go actually find things, you know.
Mhm. Life has to move on, right?
Yeah.
Steve, how about you?
Good. First, I want to say I really love both of your setups. Adams, yours is looking great back there. I see all
Thank
your
you.
posters, and Ben, books look great. Castlevania box looks really great.
Thank you.
So yeah, for me, Adam said some of it. I was that Saturday morning kid, got your little Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle tidy whities on and a pajama shirt, box
Mhm.
of cereal, bowl of milk, and you're just set all day. I was pretty fortunate, to be honest, to growing up as a kid with the whole film thing. Like I said, my aunt, she used to go to film festivals and she's met some of the actors and such, and get promos. It was really, really a cool deal. So
Mhm.
my grandparents we had two VCR players. Okay. So you bring a movie home, then you have the blank tape, right?
Uh-oh.
We had a notebook. Well, they had a notebook categorized by movies. So like and numbered. So basically we had our own movie store growing up as a kid. I mean, it was incredible. Just I was fortunate. So let's put it that way. So that's why I grew up with I'd watch Back to the Future, Jaws, you know, Godzilla, some of the older films, the later films, but it was mostly anything new I had right away. So
Mhm.
so it was great. And I didn't really like reading much as a kid, just like Goosebumps. That was kind of,
Mhm.
every kid, that was the trend, right,
Mhm.
in the early 90s. So I had them, I read some of them, so I didn't really, Star Wars to me was just the movies and then the toys. And that, oh man, getting toys was so fun. Toys R Us, just shelves full of whatever you want, and
Mhm.
now you try to do that and it's just not the same. You
Mhm.
go to the store today and there's like nothing.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? It's just like, come on. And they market it, to be honest, in my opinion, they market it towards us because we're the ones footing the bill for it. And now they're only making a limited supply, and you got, special only at this store, you get this cover or this type of version of the book. And it's just not the same. But
Yeah.
like, just so I had movies and shows. I watched all the 89 Batman, Michael Keaton,
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
Classic.
Yep.
so
Yeah, it's my access to it was obviously living in Russia. Most of the Western films you either saw in theaters, which were dubbed, you had to go pay the ticket price and just watch it. The rest of it you only could get via pirated videotapes. I'm pretty sure most of Soviet citizens would gladly go to the actual store and pay for the actual thing if it was available. They were not. Most of the movies that you would get would be dubbed by 2 or 3 translators, which were known nationwide, and it would translate all the movies. Just reading off the actual dubbing of you would hear the American voices in English, and then the voice over it, and that's how you saw all your tapes. And it was just like numbered or written by people like a Star Wars trilogy. Go check it out. That's how I experienced it. For me, the huge anticipation was watching for the Saturday morning cartoons like Gummy Bears when they started broadcasting them through the official channels, and they were properly dubbed. Man, we were like, all the kids would just disappear off the street with like 9, 10 a.m. in the morning. We'll be like, oh, it's Saturday, let's go chill, especially in the summer. Gummy Bears is out. Everybody just like bullets home, like, oh my God, let's go check it out. And then we would converge back on the like sandbox or on the street block and share experiences. Oh, did you see this episode? This and this happened. But another great experience for me was my dad, who always tried to instill reading discipline into us. And I was the one who like absorbed it the most. He would take us to a bookstore. And I would compare going to a bookstore akin to experiencing a rental store here in the United States. When I immigrated, I was 14 years old, and going to the local Blockbuster here in the Manhattan area, just checking out all the beautiful VHS tapes and video game packages. And oh my God, what is this game? Just the allure of looking at the artwork and the promise what the video game on this new Jackie Chan movie would give you. Like, oh my God, it's such an explosive experience. That's what I had first with books. I would go in and you look like, oh, what is this Hobbit story here? Obviously, again, we're talking about everything is in
Yeah.
Russian, right? Or what is this new? I remember one of the books that I purchased with my own money was Christopher Stashev's, this British author's warlock in spite of himself. It's a long fantasy series which is translated into Russian. I'm like, English author. Okay, let's check it out. And I read it on my own. It was just an amazing experience because it was you and this book, and nothing else in the world mattered. You were not plugged into social media where you respond to your friends over here and just get back to your entertainment. You were just, it was almost like a meditative state. You did your own thing, and then the rest of life, commenced. You continue on like, okay, mom, let me do my chores now, that kind of stuff. Guys, again, I'm gonna make an assumption that I am the eldest in this room, and most of us didn't make the window into the A New Hope's release in 1977. We're not born back then, right? And it was obviously a global phenomenon. It was a huge success in theaters, and first audience who saw it in theaters must have had a very visceral and strong reaction to it. And we just simply don't have access to it. Some historians say that humans are, mammals with amnesia. We don't remember our even remote past or even immediate past because things get intermingled with information and everybody gets their own perspective. What I wanted to ask you next, guys, is how would you compare your first experience with Star Wars, watching the first Star Wars movies, in comparison to other movies that you saw back in the day? And what were the conversations with your friends like comparing Star Wars to those films? Steve, what was that comparison like?
Oh man, there was nothing like it to me at the time. When I first watched it, it was just like you said, the space battles, and there's ships, and there's these droids that are moving around, and it's just regular kid that's lives in the desert and some hole in the ground. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden this lightsaber, and then there's this guy that with the Darth Vader, and it was just no other movie took me away like it did. Okay, right away I was infatuated, hooked, just awe. And my buddy Drew, he moved away. He's the one that got me into it originally because he had a shirt on, I believe, in school one day, if I remember correctly. And we would go to each other's house like all the time. Do it like we're on the phone, hey, because back then there was no cell phones, there was no, hey, I'll message you. You had to use your phone with the
and
cord.
Remember your friend's phone number.
Yeah, and then, hey, is Drew home? Can I talk to him, please?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't be on the phone too long. But and we'd just get together, and then the toys, we would just watch the film and play and reenact with what toys we had, right? Because some of the bigger the vehicles and such were hard to get, and they were a little more money at the time. Money was different. So I mean, it was just overwhelming with joy. It just brings a smile to my face. And he moved away, and we kind of lost touch over time, and even through social media, I can't. So I was just going to reach out to him and be like, hey man, I started a channel, you should come on, we could tell some stories.
Yeah, that'll be awesome, man.
Hey, yeah.
Adam also mentioned this as well. How did your first exposure to Star Wars stack up to other movies, and how did you and your friends compare Star Wars to other movies? And did you guys both, or you could also like continue that on with, would you say that Star Wars has possibly impacted you as much as you can imagine it impacting the original 1977 crowd?
Well, as I mentioned on Steve's channel recently, I was pretty young when I first, I remember A New Hope came out in theaters, and I was pretty young. Like, I didn't have a lot of friends at the time, but I saw it with my family. And I mentioned of all of the movies that I've seen, like Godzilla, Jaws, the scary monster movies, that one actually gave me my first nightmare. It was it was Luke's when he found Luke's family killed from the stormtroopers, and he found their charred corpses and everything. That actually contributed to my very first nightmare. And but I still enjoyed the movie, but it wasn't until The Empire Strikes Back where it started to immerse with me. And I remember at that time, I met my my neighbor who became my first friend. And we would talk about it. We'd play the Super Nintendo Super Star Wars games, which are insanely difficult, even to a mid-30s guy such as me, insanely difficult.
Yeah.
But my one regret was that one Halloween we had a big party at my house. My friend dressed up as Darth Vader, red lightsaber and everything. I had a Luke Skywalker costume, but I wanted to go as Robin from Batman and Robin.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, oh man, this would have been perfect. Like we both could have had like an epic lightsaber fight outside, is because they had like the flashlight lightsabers that glue in the dark, and like, man, that would have been perfect. And I still regret myself to this day. But yeah, other like than that, like some of my like I remember it didn't really like I didn't get to have much conversations about Star Wars until I got like close to high school and everything.
Mhm.
But still I did get to, have some experience like collecting some of the toys, like the Luke Skywalker figures, and like I said, playing the video games.
Mhm. Yeah, it seems like it's had its own way with the 80s and 90s kids. And it's not just exclusive to the original trilogy, obviously. We were talking about A New Hope film in 1977, but it's all of Star Wars. It's Phantom Menace. It's The Force Awakens. All of it has this kind of like huge impact on the youth. And it seems like the trend keeps going. And obviously, it's not exactly the same experience because we're living in a completely different technological world. Right. Once again, it all comes back to the topic of the day, how we experience media, how much access we have to it. But still, it seems to be this magical moment that happens.
Yeah, I think, like you were saying there, Ben, how we experience media, it's great. I mean, it's what we have today, technology, it's phenomenal. I mean, we all have it, we all enjoy it, we all binge watch shows.
Yeah.
But that feeling you get, like we were talking, Adam was saying, going in the video store. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, you take your first date, hey, let's go get a movie, and you'd go there together and walk around. I mean, I know that's on a different topic, but even as a kid, most of the time I would beeline it for the video games, probably like any other kid, right? Forget about movies for now. But it's just kind of like a bummer, you know, because we don't have that. You can't experience that. And then even while we had some video stores still around, we didn't go anyway so it's kind of our own fault in a sense.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. You probably can hear it.
Yeah.
I'll hit pause here just a little bit. No.
That's renovation though,
Take a
man.
little break. Oh my God. No, that's living in North Manhattan.
No,
I
I'm
like
loving this. This is a good conversation. Sorry.
Oh,
I like your
thank you.
coffee mug there, Steve.
Thank you, sir. I like yours too. I seen that first. Yeah, beautiful.
Ah, nice.
I
Last
tried to.
Jedi one.
Oh yeah, may the force be with you. Then it changes colors when it gets hot. But I've used this damn thing so much.
Nice. A friend of mine who worked for the Disney store got me one that had like Darth Vader on it. It says the dark side.
Nice.
That's dope.
For certain mornings and everything, you're just like okay, I need to be Darth Vader today, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah.
By the way, guys, how well can you hear it? Because I did put like a little bit gain on my microphone to try to mute it out. It's still, you can hear it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the sirens.
Yeah.
Well, it's New York City, brother.
Yeah.
I still want to go there. Me and my wife are planning to go down there soon.
Yeah, definitely let me know, man. If you travel through, I'll be happy to see you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
My
I think
wife.
Go ahead.
Same here.
Well,
Yeah.
I was gonna say my wife went to DC recently, and she really enjoyed that. And a lot of family stuff to do there, Adam.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, my dad used to live down there briefly while he was working.
Yeah.
oh yeah, I think you mentioned
We're
that.
ready to continue?
Oh, yeah.
All right, I'm making the sign for myself so we could cut it out. All right. Yeah, and from my end, what I wanted to bring into this is that once again, as surprising as it may sound, when we started watching Star Wars on the block, my dad actually brought the tapes from work. He said, I bought you guys, your first VHS player. And now I talked to my friend, the co-worker at work, and they told me this new crazy American, trilogy is available. It was 1987. So we had all three movies brought over, and I saw all three of them. And obviously, the world was never the same again. It was all amazing. It was all fascinating. And we saw it 10 million times over. But the next day over, the conversation in school and on the block with other kids was with neighbors. Hey man, like, did you see this new Star Wars thing? Yeah, man, it's awesome. Yeah, it's great. Oh, by the way, the droids, the robots kind of look like in Terminator. Oh yeah, or maybe the RoboCop. And then, and then Indiana Jones gets into conversation. And then, Back to the Future. So we had this huge library of films, which I think we didn't properly appreciate before because it was all available already, and we saw it all stacked one next to each other. We saw, wow, American movies are the greatest in the world. not realizing fully that it took time for those movies to come out. So, and the reason I'm making this point is when we look at stuff today, it's like, oh, they can't make movies anymore today. Well, hello, look at Dune. Pretty much awesome movie. But it takes time for something really special and great to arrive. And I would say make an argument, even within the context of Star Wars, it takes time for something. Just because it has a Star Wars label on it, just because you have amazing talents attached to it, you're not going to score each and every time. And sometimes when you have too much content out there, perhaps some of it gets diluted. That's where fans are saying, well, it's not how it was back in the day. And that's the reason I wanted to make a conversation about back then and today, because back then, something struck gold once, and you would think, like, this is Star Wars. It can never fail me. This is Star Wars. It's special. It's George Lucas. As we know, filmmaking is such a complex, staggering enterprise that sometimes things just don't go the way you expected them to. But to shift the conversation a little bit, guys, also, so in my personal experience, we had other movies that we compared Star Wars to. And it was part of a larger, like a branch part of a larger tree, where we had our RoboCops over here, and we had our Ninja Turtles over there, and our Batmans over here, and all of it was great. Star Wars was never just the peak of the mountain. But when it comes to collecting toys and actually playing with toys as kids, did you guys have other toys or action figures that you loved as much, if not more, as Star Wars? Steve, how about you? I know you're a huge toy collector.
Yes, and I kick myself now for not having some of the things I used to have. But the Ninja Turtles, 100%. I had the van, I had Crane's machine, Bebop and Rocksteady and Casey Jones and all of them, and I just missed not having them. And even some G.I. Joes. I always enjoyed playing with action figures as a kid. Like it was like the 3.75 is just, that's like my go-to. I just have so much nostalgia with them. They're just cool to look at. Most of them are made well, and it's just, like I said, it's still a shame that the prices of things and things that they don't make anymore for kids, because it's really what they're made for, is to bring joy and make memories. And that's what we're talking about here too, is memories that we've all experienced and created, through Star Wars, through other movies, it's awesome.
Adam, how about you? I see a nice, very interesting Lego package in the back. Was Lego always part of your Star Wars enjoyment?
Actually, no, I didn't actually start doing Lego until about 2 years ago. It was it's kind of one of those things I wanted to do but never really got to do as a kid. So but yeah, I got the Boba Fett one back there. That was actually a gift from my nephew, and I still need to put it together. But now for me, growing up, I was like Steve, Ninja Turtles, but when it came to Star Wars, I always had I had Han Solo's blaster and Luke's green lightsaber. But I also collected a lot of Marvel. Especially Spider-Man, because he was my favorite. But when it came to the biggest, other than Star Wars, the biggest one for me was Godzilla. I loved the movies, and I loved collecting all the toys. I would go out in my backyard and pretend like my grass was the island that he lived on, and he'd be battling other monsters and everything. But yeah, just it was, other than that, the Ninja Turtles, I would collect the nunchucks and Michelangelo's mask and everything, and just but yeah, those were really my go-to, was Godzilla or Spider-Man, other than, and Ninja Turtles, other than Star Wars. But there was quite a vast collection of Star Wars figures growing up, and it's kind of like what you said, Steve, some of those toys that you collect now, I would go into some of these retro or vintage stores, and the prices would just be up, and I'm just man, I was saying, I'm glad my parents didn't have to pay those prices back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I wasn't even aware that there were any merchandise available for Star Wars, obviously, in Soviet Union. The way that we purchased American toys or, Japanese Transformers or whatnot was always through secondhand on the markets. You would actually go on the markets where we would sell clothing that's, imported from across the seas, and toys and gaming systems. And sometimes you would look at things and not even realize what they were. And it took me years to realize that one of the things that I enjoyed back in Russia was a kid. So the Russian action figures were not action figures. It was just molded statues. They didn't have any opposable kind of like limbs. We had like the war soldiers. We had cowboys and Indians. That was a huge thing for us, for Eastern Europe in general. And my God, my mom took me to the market one day to help her out carry the bags, and I saw G.I. Joe soldiers. And they had their parachutes attached where like you shot them off and they came down. And they were all like imposable. They have so many moving limbs. My mind just freaking exploded. Hold on a second. I can just not only play with this one, I can pose it. I can like position it over here, put it on the shelf, and just try to shoot it down with kind of like, toy, rifle or something like this. It just blew my mind. And only coming to America, living in New York, I realized, hold on a second, there's a whole slew of merch available for Star Wars. The shelves were packed with like those, retro collectibles you have behind you, Steve, over there. Just all the local shelves, mama papa stores, convenience stores. There was like Star Wars figurines galore, man. And some of the things which I find, I'm not going to censor myself, I find completely ridiculous, like on the borderline, like batshit crazy, how the modern YouTube, the outrage channels exploit that idea that the reason that modern Star Wars is not popular is because there's not a lot of toys on the shelves. Because they ain't popular anymore, man. Because all the kids are playing our video games. I mean, you're both our fathers. I'm single. I can't speak to that. But guys, compared to how modern kids interact with Star Wars toys, is it more of a thing that they try to cater for adults and you mostly get through online? Or do you really feel that the quality of modern Star Wars dictates how much toy output is there? Steve, let's go.
Yeah, first I want to circle back, Ben, for a second. How you were explaining how you grew up and you didn't have a lot of things at your fingertips. I appreciate you telling us that story, because I think we forget things around the world are different, especially back in, roughly we all kind of grew up in the same, era in a sense, so we forget, we didn't think about it. So yeah, I couldn't imagine that, Ben. So thanks for telling us that. Appreciate that.
It wasn't that we were like just poor kids,
no, right?
But we just didn't have access. Like we can't get to it. It's like, okay, so just deal with what you have. You get to play around with toys that mama gets you. That's it.
Yeah. No, I didn't mean.
Yeah.
But nowadays, you nailed it, my brother. Kids these days that just video games. My kids, they bring their friends down here in my little man cave or den, whatever you want to call it. And they're like, wow, that's really cool, and then it's like, thanks for stopping by. There's a tip cup when you go around the corner up to the stairs on the left. But it's a shame. And like I was kind of saying earlier, they market it towards us now because we're the generation that grew up with that kind of style of things, and that's what our eyes fixate. I love looking at these. It's like, man, I just go back and I'm guilty of purchasing them. And like I said, it's really a drag that you have to go all over to search for them. You got to go to GameStop or Target, or you got to go to this Walmart, and it's only an exclusive, and then it's $30 and the prices keep going up. And it's like, and to be honest with you, I know we say there's not a lot of toys in stores, but like there's a lot of it out there, and it's just ridiculous.
There's tons of merchandise right now, more than ever, I would say.
Yep. Yeah, they're marketing the crap out of it.
Yeah, I agree that the most of what the toys that we find in stores today, like I feel like a lot of them are geared towards like for nostalgia, and not only that, it's like I've seen that a lot of these toys are being bought and sold like for higher prices and everything.
Yeah, scalpers, man.
Yeah, they but like I do thankfully see some kids getting the chance to play with like some of these toys, and but when it comes to like the stuff that I've collected recently, like I feel bad because like when my kids come into like, you know, our office area, like I'm just like they want to play with, I'm just like, no, I don't want you to break that.
Yep.
But I'm just like, but yeah, you could look at it, but here, like here's all these toys I bought for you and everything. But like yeah, not these. But I am proud, you know, to say that, you know, my oldest daughter's birthday's coming up soon, and I asked her like, well, what do you want? She's like, I want a blue lightsaber, and I'm like, yes,
Yes.
so I'm gonna have to go out and find her one of those because she wants to play with the ones that I have. Like, maybe not mine, you know. It's just I'll find you one, don't worry. But yeah, like I let her play with some of my lightsabers recently, and she was just like loving it. She loves swinging in like the
Mhm.
sound effects, and like we had like little duels and everything. So I'm glad to see that like some of the stuff that I got the experience is going through my kid.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
but no, you guys definitely hit the nail on the head with it's just toy collecting nowadays is like not necessarily for enjoying the toy. It's, you know, like it's, you know, to collect. It's not like
Or
it's just
display.
display.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's decoration and
Mhm.
like, and I mean there's nothing wrong with that, but like it's just, you know, it's just people like all these toys that are coming out. It's just I've seen more toys on YouTube videos, like people just showing them off, than I have seen, you know, kids playing with them. And you know, again, nothing wrong with that, but yeah, it is kind of it is different that most of what kids want to do nowadays is just, you know, grab their phone. Like I was like, oh yeah, that's
Yep.
cool. Like I'm gonna beat this level on my phone real quick and everything. So it's it's just different times. Yeah.
So, Adam, as a parent, right, who collects figures as well, but you also have children who play with toys, would you personally, from your angle, say that today's lack of toys on the shelf is not due to the quality of current or the state of current Star Wars, but just the trends of what kids follow today, in your opinion?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of like some of the toys that I have uh seen. Like I used to work at a retail store, and like some of the toys that I've seen that get sold are not necessarily for Star Wars and everything. Like I said, I've seen a lot more like people our age, you know, buying them to collect them and everything, or
Right.
sell them at higher prices and everything whenever, like, because they know they wait until it's like no longer available, then they mark it up, you know,
Mm-hmm.
online.
Mm-hmm.
But and some of the stuff that I've seen, like I mean, I've seen more like I've seen more people like buy like Marvel type stuff, like Captain America's shield or Thor's hammer or Hulk's hands and everything. But as far as Star Wars goes, like I've seen mostly those go for just collection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Guys, before I move on to the next topic, I also wanted to bring this very, very small detail. I'm really appreciative of families and especially wives that support their husbands' hobbies, like collecting these toys, because I'm pretty sure there's a range of women who said like, okay, I want a capable man by my side, the provider, like not a toy collector. What the hell is that? Remember the 40-year-old virgin comedy thing? But
Oh yeah.
there's just something so fascinating about looking at a miniaturized human being, representational, like little figure that is movable and opposing, and all the craftsmanship that goes in, and it just activates the inner child. Like you want to return to child for a little bit, like. What's so shameful? Like you have your kid sitting by your side, like, oh, let's be dorky for a little bit, pose this little figure. Yeah. My dad used to do it with us all the times. He used to have like these cowboys and Indians, and he would pose both of them together as if they're warring against one another. And he would say, you got to help this side. Tomorrow you're going to help that side. Today these guys are bad. Tomorrow these guys are bad. He always gave us almost like instructing us in a balanced way that neither side is good or evil. And we didn't even realize it as kids. Because Eastern Europe was exposed to a lot of German-produced Westerners. And there was this huge, sorry guys, to get just a little bit off the topic, there was this Serbian actor, Gojka Mitic, who had this very like presentable look. He was very like, kind of like, complexion was kind of dark, because he looked like a Native American almost. And he actually went to all over the North America. He interviewed a lot of tribes. He took a lot of, notes on their costumes and musics and culture. And the way that his Westerns in 60s and 70s in Germany varied from traditional Hollywood, we're going to conquer the West. And not to bring down the Westerners, but just to understand which kind of time of period they came from versus the Eastern Europe and this guy was praising more of a culture and music, and they're not just naked running around like they're all beautiful garments. You know the point I'm making. And that kind of introduced it, it exposed us to action figures, and we looked at cowboys and Indians, and it was a huge part of play, but also education. So I can totally see how figures are such an integral part of upbringing with kids and even for adults today. But to move forward a little bit here, we spoke earlier about, you know, how the Star Wars fans interacted with the franchise before versus today. Now I want to overlap that concept over to the Disney Plus in the streaming services. You know, let's compare the quality versus quantity. You know, are you guys happy with more Star Wars today? Do you feel that, you know, instant access and the frequency with which we get media has influenced how much interest we really have for it? Adam, if you could get us started on this.
Well, I'm kind of glad you asked that, because I did have some thoughts on that, because I have noticed that not just for Star Wars, but Marvel as well, there's been a lot more, you know, quantity in getting these shows out. But, you know, the quality of some of these shows, I feel like are lacking. And it's the way I was like really happy, but like before Disney Plus came out, I was really happy like whenever it was like for like one movie came out, and then you'd have to wait 2 years later or so for the next movie to come out. I was actually more appreciative of that, because it gave, you know, us something to like kind of get excited about, and we just go about our lives and everything, and it gave us like the opportunity to like, you know, I'll just use this as an example, like who is Rey's parents? Like, is she related to Luke? Is she related to Han and Leia? It gave us something to chat about, and like for the next couple of years. But now, like as you said, Stephen, like we can just binge everything, and it's just, I feel like it kind of does, there is kind of like a decline in like, you know, giving us the opportunity to converse about it, you know, to wait for these movies to come out, to give us like some anticipation, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I haven't caught up with all of the Star Wars content that's on Disney Plus yet, because, you know, it's just, I feel like I'm starting to catch up on The Mandalorian, but like with all these others, it's just when you put too much quantity out, it's just like, and you're subscribed to the streaming service, it's just like, oh, I have plenty, I can get to it anytime.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
And I don't know, it kind of lowers the anticipation for it, in my opinion. Like, but if they said that like, hey, we're going to be bringing out a new film like once a year and everything, like that's something that's a little different, that gives you something to like have some anticipation for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, Adam. You know, this is a good topic, and I've thought about this kind of as well, like comparing the films to the streaming services and what we have, and, you know, weighing out the differences. I like the streaming services, but there's things that I don't like about them as well. Like some of the shows I feel kind of get, how would I say that? They lack the effort put in, we'll say. Not that anybody involved is doing a bad job, but it's just, they're just trying to get it out there. Everyone's trying to find their Stranger Things.
Right.
I'm going to say that right now. That's what everybody is trying to do. They're
That's
trying
a
to
great
find
point.
that. They're trying to, I mean, that's a phenomenal series. Everyone loves it. It's shot well, written well. Everything is just the cast. It's great.
Yeah.
So everybody's competing to try to find that, right? You had the Lord of the Rings on Amazon, the Wheel of Time on Amazon. They're trying to find that. You got Game of Thrones on HBO. Disney Plus now, they got Marvel. They got Star Wars, you know? And in my opinion, it's brought a lot of us together. The more content that they're putting out, it's given us something to talk about. We're meeting people. I would have never met you guys had it had not been kind of all over, right? So it's a good thing, and it's also a bad thing, because now that we're lacking, you know, there's some shows that, for example, Obi-Wan, the Kenobi series, I loved it. I thought it was great, but that's nostalgia. Ewan McGregor, Hayden Christensen, Obi-Wan, for Pete's sake, Vader. I mean, come on, it was great, but it should, in my opinion, should have had more effort put towards that, just for the simple fact of them two characters alone, right? That makes sense. And in my opinion, after the sequel trilogy, I'm not a hater on it. I only probably watched each of them 3 times. I need to rewatch them. You know, Ben said earlier about having your wives and stuff involved or your significant others. My wife's getting into it. We're having fun with Mando. That brought a lot of people into the fandom. That show alone, right? They don't even have to know really Star Wars.
Yeah.
So everybody loves it, and that's great. But after the sequel trilogy, I feel they're afraid to pull the trigger on another trilogy. They just don't have the balls all over the court. Everybody's fumbling it, in my opinion. Right. So that's kind of like, I could go on about this because it's a great topic, you know, but I don't want to seem like I'm rambling on, you know, but it's got its pros and cons for sure.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. It definitely has pros and cons. I kind of want to chime in just from my personal experience and talk about me, less about how other fans feel about this, because it's clear to me that more Star Wars is good Star Wars for fans. It's like, hey, just more. So what if it's not everything is perfect? I'll find my niche. I'll find my favorite show. Maybe what something is not great to you is going to be great for me, right? Steve and I, we share completely different opinion on Kenobi's show. I'm enjoying that he's enjoying it.
Yeah.
That's enough for me. But from my perspective, I feel like I'm not excited about Star Wars anymore. I'm not afraid to say it. I just regurgitate. I just process it. Oh, Mandalorian. Even the Bad Batch show, which I was crazy excited about. And when a good episode does come out, or when it does show, it still has an impact on me. Don't get me wrong. But I'm just, okay, I'll watch it. All right. There's not this thrill of anticipation anymore, of magic, of once you see the Star Wars logo, like, holy shit, the world stops. It's Star Wars, man. Nothing else is going to compare. It's going to be Star. It's not there anymore. It became part of the, you know, just a routine. And I think it's not quantity. I think it's quality. Because when I got into the expanded universe, the Legends books in, you know, mid to late 90s, what they were able to do is, and they were not all perfect. There were a lot of books that were kind of duds. Like, oh, okay, let's exploit the adventures of Luke, Leia, and Han all over again. But the ones that really made the effort, it really felt like we're taking you into a new direction. We're doing something else. It's still Star Wars, but it's not Star Wars. We're still following the staple. We're still following all the nuts and bolts of what makes a great Star Wars story, but we're presenting you in a different package. We're trying a new kind of like prose style or genre, like a more like a horror like or more science fiction-y kind of like Star Wars that always kept you interested and always tried to, you know, carve a new a pathway for Star Wars. And they were bold about this. Maybe because there were books. Maybe because they didn't have as many stakes or as much, you know, money to lose as a feature film, which is like $200 million to produce. And in that sense, they were more playful. Today, it's like you said, Steve, they were all trying to find their Stranger Things. Like when you see the next season, each and every season, you're in complete and utter awe of just how amazing it is. And it's just thrill and it's just anticipation. You want to get to it. Today, I'm like, okay, the new Mando episode came out. I'm like 2 weeks behind. I don't even remember the new Star Wars came out anymore. And same with books. Man, I love the High Republic. I love reading those books. I love reviewing them. But again, I got to a point where it's like, oh, okay, can we take a break? Can we pass for like 5 or 6 years where people are like, yeah, I was kind of hating on this book or that show, you know, a couple of years back. Can we get more Star Wars? Like when the inner kid activates, you're like, oh, let's get back on track here. Like I'm starting to miss this stuff, you know?
I was going to say, Ben, I feel you with the High Republic thing. That's kind of what turned me away from it in the early on. It was just like, holy man, you know, because as a fan, you like read and you want to read all the material.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's really high quality material, but it's just too much of it.
Yeah.
Moving on, you know, we mentioned earlier, you know, we come from different walks of life, different cultures, you know, slightly different age groups. And I always makes the case that human beings are complex. Our thought patterns and processes are complex. It's never clear-cut, black or white, good or bad, you know. And, you know, it's apparent to me that Star Wars fans have always been very, very passionate and also very critical about their favorite or least favorite Star Wars. And I wanted to kind of like touch upon of that particular difference of then versus now. And obviously, the major game changer is the advent of the internet and the social media, because what we used to the conversations that we used to have on the block, on the street corner, on the sandbox, in your apartment, inviting all your boys and girls for your birthday party or something like this, versus interacting with people through faceless forms of communication, most likely text, or absorbing somebody's YouTube channel video without the ability to answer back and ever getting the chance of your reply being seen, because he has like 1 million followers and he has this very strong opinion of Star Wars. And, there seems to be this existing stigma today that the original trilogy was immaculate. It was always flawless. It was always universally praised. Although some articles, some blogs are coming out talking about The Empire Strikes Back and how a lot of fans were pissed off because it finished on a cliffhanger and because the great plot twist just didn't make any sense to them. Regardless of the quality of the film itself, there was a lot of critique because it didn't feed into fan anticipation, into their expectations. Another stigma is that the prequel trilogy was hated by critics. Only the critics hated. All of the fans, the real Star Wars fans, loved it, but the critics hated, and now there's like an army of fans who grew up in 90s to early 2000s kind of like march behind the prequels and say, well, only the critics hated it because they misunderstood it, and obviously these were superior films. And the last piece of that stigma is that all of the sequels are unanimously hated. They were hated from the start up. The moment that the Force Awakens credits rolled, everybody just stood up from the theaters and left automatically. and the movie never made those gazillion billions of dollars that it made. It was hated. And it's kind of interesting and fascinating to observe how people react to things. And I kind of want to, with my next set of questions, to figure out whether our opinions, impressions, interactions with something are written in stone, are they solid, or do we evolve, change, and sometimes forget how we reacted to something, what our first raw response to something was? Because I recall a very different story about all three trilogies living through it, because I don't need to be reminded how the prequel trilogy was accepted or received. I lived in a huge metropolis, New York City, interacting from fans from a film school to college to my high school friends to people in the public library or in the Barnes and Noble store. You felt it. The reaction was in the air, and it was never the same thing. It was always like waves in the ocean, always going this direction and that direction, and constantly shifting and evolving. So the first thing I want to ask is, guys, recall how we felt about our favorite and least favorite Star Wars movies as kids, as far as the block, as far as your friends are concerned, and how you guys react to modern Star Wars interacting with people on social media. Whoever wants to take up this question first.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm ready. I got it right here. Yeah.
So go for it.
As a kid, Ben, you hit a lot of things here I want to touch on real quick, but
go for it.
Like you said, Star Wars when you see it, you don't care. It doesn't excite you in a sense, but that's everything nowadays. Like,
yeah,
with the way the social media, you got Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Ramble, there's all kinds of different things out there that, I mean, the social media, the interaction, that's where everyone does it. Even kids, we said it earlier, the kids, this is it. This is what, it's a great piece of technology, but it's taken over so much. So you don't go to the video store and you bump into somebody and be like, hey, did you see this one? I remember doing that. They're like, yeah, it was pretty good. So there's really no interaction even with kids, nowadays. So it's just, it's kind of a shame, really. You know what I'm saying? And the excitement of things, there's a lack of it now.
Yeah.
But also we're guilty of enjoying it. So, it's a win-lose, it's a win-win, lose-lose type of deal.
No matter what, we keep craving more. No matter how much we criticize it, or, even the naysayers, at heart, I still feel they're Star Wars fans. They want the best for Star Wars. They want to see it at its finest.
Right. And the prequels, back then, I was the perfect age to go. The Phantom Menace sticks out. I loved it. You're with your buddies. You have Matt, Jason, Brian. I think Ryan was another one. There was a group of us, and then you run into other ones. But so that hype sticks out to me a lot. Now today, there's not that at all. I mean,
Mhm.
ever since the world took a turn, everything's changed. The game's changed. That's why we're all on the streaming platforms. We're all getting
Yeah.
our media right now. Okay, we got 4 months, and then House of Dragons is coming. But I got the Wheel of Time, and
Yeah.
Mando's starting. Hun, you got the popcorn ready? It's gonna be a long night.
Yeah, man.
Like so. It's great, and it's also it's bad, and that's kind of where
Yeah. How about
it's
you,
a hard
Adam?
call.
Like, how would you say is, how you reacted to the movies as kid and talked about it with your friends versus today? And are you seeing what I'm seeing, like this trend to have this outrage rather than concentrating on things that we love? Because it's apparent that Star Wars was never always perfect. Somebody always
Right.
had something to say about it. But today, like when you get on Twitter or on YouTube, we seem to be fixated on the things that we want to fix with Star Wars. That things
Right.
that were in the good day, when the creator, the George Lucas Almighty was around. We need to get to back to the good side. It's like how do you feel? What's different today?
Well, first I was wanting to say, like, you guys touched on something like really interesting, like just like there's always parts of Star Wars that you'll enjoy and always parts that you'll hate, but no matter what, is this you enjoy it. Like that reminds me of a quote. The actor Hank Azaria, he plays multiple voices on The Simpsons,
Mhm.
especially the comic book guy, and he made a quote in that voice, saying like, "Life is like the Star Wars movies. Some of it's great, some of it sucks, but no matter what, you have to sit through all of it." And it's what I've noticed is that social media has played a huge role in like how Star Wars is perceived, because like, or perceived, because like growing up, like you could talk about Star Wars and someone could say like, oh, I hated A New Hope or Return of the Jedi, and then nowadays, and you could just brush that off like, oh, okay, like life goes on. But now, like what you said, like going on social media like Twitter and everything like that, those comments, like they could stay there forever,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
and no matter like how many days go by, like you could always like pull up on your screen like what somebody said about this and everything, or something said about that. But as far as like growing up and enjoying it, I just remember like the crowds, like I didn't experience the first like thunderous applause when the opening screen popped up until the Revenge of the Sith movie came out.
Mhm.
But I enjoyed like there was a lot of hate towards the Phantom Menace,
Right.
but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a big fan, and still not, of Attack of the Clones, but I enjoyed like what they were, all the new tricks they were trying to do. But and I remember like when Disney bought Star Wars and announced that there's a new movie coming out, I just remembered like there was a lot of hype for it. Like everybody was excited. Like whenever I got into the theater with my wife and our friends to go see The Force Awakens, it was packed. Like people were like trying to throw their coats in to save their seats, and people would come by and just throw their coats like away, just trying to steal their seats, because everybody wanted to see this movie. And there was thunderous applause, but as the movies kept going, it just kept getting less and less. And I think that one point, like whenever Rise of Skywalker came out, me and my wife and my brother-in-law were the only ones going, yeah. Then we were just like looking around, like nobody was applauding, so we just kind of
Mhm.
sat back down.
Yeah.
But it's just yeah, it's just like because the quality has just been going down, and it's just hasn't been feeling the same, because um and mostly for the sequel trilogy, I blame that there was just not a clear plan for
Right.
those. Like it was just like, hey, let's do this, actually let's do
Yeah.
that, actually let's do this, and it just wasn't fully constructed. But it's just and you, like what you said a minute ago, Ben, like everybody is wanting to voice what they would want to change about it, and then everybody wants to post about like, no, that idea sucks, like
Yeah.
this is
My
what we
idea is
should be
clearly
done.
better than yours.
Yeah, exactly. And it's for a while, I'll be the first, I was kind of burned out of it for a
Yeah.
while, and
Yeah.
I wanted to, and I didn't feel like excited about it anymore. I'm just like, oh, it's just another show and everything like that. And what got me is it's like you have to watch this show to know what's going on in this show, or read
Right.
this book to know what's going on in this book. And it just got a lot, like,
Oversaturation of content is just too much to follow, and you don't have all the time in the world. But specifically talking about the sequels, I clearly remember people coming out of theaters with The Force Awakens and thoroughly enjoying it and saying, well, okay, yeah, it threaded over the same kind of beats that A New Hope did, clearly, obviously, openly stating that they wanted to recapture the same magic, but we got a solid movie on our hands. And then slowly opinions got a little bit more bitter, a little bit more toxic. Oh, The Last Jedi. And a lot of that criticism is addressing not the flaws that The Last Jedi had, which it clearly has. I'm the first guy to point it out. It is far from a perfect film. But a lot of it was internalizing what I didn't look for in this movie. They gave me the look that I wasn't asking for, the way that he should have been the swashbuckling hero. Thus, this movie is not good. And then the Rise of Skywalker, but also to bring into the discussion the conversation online around it. And this is the reason when people ask polls like on Twitter, hey guys, would you want the next set of trilogy of films see the return of Rey, Finn, and Poe? And the reason that I say no is not because I dislike the actors. I enjoyed them.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the flawed and sometimes not fully realized characters that they were trying to portray. I'm doing the same thing that I'm doing for the prequel trilogy, trying to get the best out of it that I can, enjoy what's there that I like, and forget about the negative side. Because I can't figure out how it's beneficial or how it makes you happy or makes your day thrilling when you wake up and you have more stuff to complain about. You want to focus on things that make you happy, right? And as botched as I feel the sequel trilogy was, there's a lot of stuff about it to enjoy. It's not all bad. There are good things about it, but it's sometimes it feels frustrating. It's like, look at this Disney show, this sequel defender. This guy doesn't even know what original Star Wars is. He doesn't know what Legends books are. I'm not gonna go and wave my expanded universe flag around. I enjoy it because I enjoy it. I don't need to tell everybody how many Star Wars books I read. That's for me to enjoy. It's just frustrating sometimes to see how allegiances shift and change based on, like, the attention span is so short that if I don't see one thing over here that I don't like, then everything else is bad. The entire sequel trilogy is bad. And one of the arguments that I made with another, huge passionate fan, I said, look, I bet you guys, if George Lucas was still around and if he still diverged and made a set of movies that you didn't agree with, you would crap on him as much as Rian Johnson, J.J. Abrams, and everyone else. So partially where Star Wars is going is not the content creators, it's also partially us. It's how feverishly we're attached to it. It's like, oh my God, I need Luke, the perfect hero. You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah, and our inability to let go. And one of the prime lessons that George was addressing after he sold the franchise, he was saying, look, that it was the most difficult thing for me in the world to do. I wanted to be with my family, and I realized that things must pass. All things in life change, and you must let go. Attachments are not good. And that lesson seems to be lost in translation. And we're now suddenly a generation of fans who grew up with prequels. I don't know if it's harsh of me, guys. Maybe you could, criticize me or point something out. They put on these rose glasses, and suddenly the prequel trilogy was always immaculate, and fans, and that side of fandom that didn't like them, they just don't exist. They just don't understand Star Wars. Their opinions are not valid because these movies were always perfect. And all the sequels now are bad because we don't like them. It's that adrenaline rush of a discussion of me being right and you being wrong that kind of dilutes the excitement for Star Wars for me. That's why I don't want to see sequel trilogy characters ever again. I was on board with Rey. I really enjoyed her quest until they transformed her from no one into Palpatine. Clearly a reactionary response to fan criticism. Oh, why is Rey so strong? Just stick with the goddamn idea. She's just strong, man. That's it. Why does she need to be a Palpatine? And this kind of retooling your story and your media to cater to fans, something George Lucas would never do. And something that I always will forever appreciate and take to my grave, man, is the fact that prequels are a vision of one man. Take it or leave it. You don't like it? Go watch something else. This is George Lucas's vision, and he didn't make it for you to criticize. Either like it or move on. And same with sequels. And I think they're going to bring it home, and we are going to see our Stranger Things when something like Andor comes about. When you have a vision of a single director who knows exactly the kind of story that he wants to take, and he's not hesitant to like, oh, what's the backlash is going to be like? Maybe we need to introduce more and more a cast of this particular, a cultural background or sexual orientation. I have to, check all the boxes to make sure I'm a trendy with the current me. It felt that it had integrity of its own. I want a political, dark, gritty espionage story. If there's going to be a huge chunk of fans who are not with it, so be it. That's the story I want to take. It had this kind of integrity and position that I didn't see from Star Wars for a long, long time. Guys, you may totally disagree with me. It looks like Stevie has a ton of things to say.
We hit a lot of things there, Ben. As for like you were saying, and Adam, you were talking about as well, like the Twitter battles and stuff. I'm not on Twitter.
Yeah.
But
Good for you.
I hear a lot about what goes on there. It's great to hear everyone's thought process and opinions if they do it in a polite, respectful manner. I enjoy hearing conversations like I'll touch on about Andor is a show I didn't care for very much.
Right.
But, at the end of the day, Star Wars, there's so much material. Ben, you were saying the Legends and Expanded Universe. Well, before the sequels came out, like that, was a lot of fans read a lot of that. So they already had this vision, and I'm on that journey right now. And to what Luke might portray as, you know what I'm saying? I know that's a big controversial topic with The Last Jedi.
Right.
So, I mean, they were waiting for that. So I'm starting to understand as I kind of interview all these other great fans and content creators, and I'm hearing their story. It's mind blowing to feel, because I really wasn't involved in that whole part of the fandom when it came out.
Yeah.
Right. So it's interesting to me, and I can see how you're hurt. But on the same time, yes, let's talk about it. Let's be open-minded, because you were saying all good things have to pass on eventually, right? Nobody beats Father Time. Luke can't live forever. We all know that, right?
And to cut you off just very briefly, I'm sorry, Steve. They did clearly state, Lucasfilm and Del Rey were transparent since day one. They said, look, guys, it's new ownership. We're going to start from scratch. We're not touching Legends. We're putting them here on the side. This part of the legacy of Star Wars is at an end. We're going to start from, and some fans just will not have it. No. This is my Star Wars.
Yeah.
I don't care about yours. We had this 40-year-old history. So now it's really awesome that you're coming into it and you get to see the angle that a lot of fans were projecting onto the new Star Wars.
Yeah, and I like hearing the new side of things as well, because I like the new stuff as well.
Yeah.
So, everyone, it's the biggest fandom. It brings us all together at the end of the day. There's so much material that you can pick and choose what you really enjoy and like, right? We all kind of grew up in the middle road. So we had the original trilogy and the prequels. They were trying new animation. They had green screen, blue screen, all kinds of crazy stuff. George Lucas was throwing at the pot, Jar Jar Binks, for Pete's sake. So, I mean, you had them fans that grew up. Now you have fans with the sequel trilogy and Rey, like Rey would have been cool. You're right. But the whole Skywalker thing and the Palpatine just kind of threw me for a loop. I'll be honest. I'm like, Absolutely. What in the Sam hell is happening here? So, I mean, it just brings us all together. And like you were saying, Andor, okay, we got Tony Gilroy. Okay, great. He's a smart man, does his job well, but they hire somebody that doesn't like Star Wars. That he said specifically. Okay, I don't like Star Wars. He said that. I'm like, okay, well, my electricity is out. I'm going to call the plumber. Maybe he can throw some water at it and get my electricity back on, right? To me, that's just a bad call. But, okay, he's going to try something different. Sure, I think Jonathan Kasdan is a phenomenal director and does his thing and he's great. So you have two different sides there. Andor, in the time that we're living in right now, was a dark kind of show, and I didn't need that dreary dread. Now I know there's fans out there that like that suspenseful stuff and the secret agent, and I wanted something fun. Star Wars is fun. It's supposed to take you to a galaxy far, far away, right? Make you happy. Even though there is that story that needs to be told about the ground folk that are in the background making things happen, right? But just not. I just didn't feel it was the right time.
Swashbuckling adventure. That's what it is at the end of the day.
I watched it because it's Star Wars. I forced myself through it, if I'm being 100% transparent here, because after the second episode, I'm like, what the hell is this?
Right.
You know, so I just wanted to say that, you know, but I know there's fans that like it and everybody did their great job, because I know a lot of that was shot during COVID. So there was a lot of, you know, certain things they had to go through, but it just wasn't for me.
I'll be super excited to revisit Andor with you specifically after you jump on the X-Wing books by Michael Stackpole and Arn Alston. It'll be a very interesting discussion. What is Star Wars and how our anticipation plays into it. But sure. Adam, also from your side, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are there.
Well, I was going to say, both of you guys mentioned this. Whenever the thing that made me roll my eyes, like to the point where I thought they were going to scratch my brain, was when Palpatine came back. This is probably a hot take for some, but either in Legends when he came back or in the canon when he came back, that is my least favorite thing.
Guys, for those of you who may not know what Adam is talking about, it's Dark Empire, Dark Horse comic books, illustrated by the amazing Cam Kennedy. I have to bring his name every time.
I enjoyed reading the comic. I did not like that Palpatine came back.
Same here, man. I didn't like it.
I'm just like, I mean, that's kind of a trend in comics in general. If they die, they come back. So I think Superman died probably like 3 or 4 times, but I didn't like that, and it was just. But I sat through the film and I was like, I'll give it a shot. I still didn't like it, but I agree. Like, what some of the whenever I've been more interested in the stuff that's diverting, like telling a new story, but set within the Star Wars universe. Like, I was intrigued by the Vision show that came out. Because like I like seeing new stories, and one of my favorite eras in Legends right now is the Old Republic, because it's telling a different story. Like that happened, and I remember someone here. I remember someone saying that like they would have been more open to what Disney was doing with Star Wars if it had set like maybe years in the future, like centuries, like to where, you know, like not messing really around with like Luke, Han, Leia or something like that, just telling a new story entirely. And part of me agrees with that. I mean, I love reading all of the stories about our heroes, but like a part of me just wants to see something different. And I haven't seen Andor yet, so I don't have any thoughts on that, but it's just and you know, there's what you said earlier, Ben, the whole idea that like this is my Star Wars. Well, no, this is my Star Wars. What's kind of helped me in that is that I see Star Wars now as like most comic book stories, in the sense that in comic books there's multiple dimensions, like telling different stories, like the Spider-Verse or the Flashpoint. There's different dimensions, and that's just kind of what I see like canon and Legends right now. It's just like the Legends, it's its own story, and canons, it's its own story. And I mean, personally, out of the two, I really prefer the expanded universe. And Ben, me and you talked about this at one point, where whenever I read those books, it's like I'm brought back to that same tone that Star Wars, whenever I grew up, it was setting that same tone that I was used to. But like, and there's some canon books, you know, that I enjoy, and some of the films, you know, that I enjoyed, like Rogue One, I thought was fantastic. But you know, it's just whenever I'm reading like the expanded universe, like I'm not gonna be one that says like, if you don't like if you like the canon, that's great. I mean, enjoy it. I'm glad that you enjoy it. But if you don't like Legends, that's fine. You don't have to. If you don't like canon, you don't have to. It's just like what I want to like on my channel is like, if you enjoy like I want to create an environment to where we enjoy Star Wars. Like we can disagree 100% on a book. Like I reviewed the Crystal Star recently. There are some people that
I love that book. That, you know, in adult conversations with other fans where you respect everybody's opinion, you kind of separate yourself from what the quality of the content is. Obviously, nobody has an opinion that is fully unbiased and completely on point. Like, Revenge of the Sith is the greatest piece of cinema ever made. Well, according to who? By which standard? What scene makes it so? What kind of level of writing do you regard it as, the greatest? But the point is, you could say, look, I don't like Andor because it didn't work for me. It doesn't speak to me. Adam, you could say, look, I'm reading right now the expanded universe, the Legend books, the Old Republic, and to me that corresponds with my vision of Star Wars, or that version of Luke Skywalker that I didn't see in the Last Jedi is what I find here, and it makes it suddenly so much more interesting, and you kind of like dodge the outrage culture bullet, where I don't like it. I'm gonna go on Twitter. I have my audience. And I need to start preaching. I need to spread the true word that what Disney is doing wrong by Star Wars, it should not exist because I don't like it.
Yeah, and it's just like one of my friends that I've streamed with plenty of time, Matt Wilkins, like he has said, like I can't count on one hand how many times that like people have asked him, have you read this new canon book? And all he says like, oh, I'm not interested, but hey, if you like it, great. And like if you like the canon, that's great. But he loves the expanded universe, and that's the Star Wars he wants to stick with. Yeah.
So guys, to start wrapping things up here, I think we covered quite a bit. I would love actually to carry on this conversation. There's so much more that we can unwrap, but I hope the audience who's watching this gets at least a clue or idea how like three kids who grew up with Star Wars, how we're experiencing it with our friends and discussing it on the playgrounds back in the day, when the access to our favorite shows and favorite movies was not the same the way that it is, and how our appreciation and opinions has evolved. Because the point that I was trying to make, and I hope it somehow came across, is that our impression of something is never static. We constantly shift, change, and evolve. And sometimes that things happen that you didn't see something in positive light. You might circle back to it, return to it years after and say, oh my God, well, the prequels were not what I always thought they were. Man, I was really, really jaded. Look at it. Wonderful. I just rewatched the Clone Wars, the Attack of the Clones movie, 2 months ago. I loved watching it, man. It's by no means it's a better film than it ever was for me, but I just sat down and I was able to unplug and have such a great time with it and enjoy it, as flawed as that movie is. And I hope that's the message that we carried across today. Guys, if I could hear your final thoughts today from Stevie and then from Adam, and then we'll start wrapping things up today, I'll definitely drop all of your relevant links in this video description below. Guys, please go ahead, check out both Steve, Adam. They do some really, really excellent content, and they're real diehard Star Wars fans.
Thanks, Ben. I appreciate that. And yeah, you guys got to check Adam out at Red Fives. His book reviews are great, and he's a genuine person, and you're awesome. And Ben, you're awesome. I want to say thanks to both you guys for being an inspiration to me. For real, it truly means a lot. You guys, I've listened to you since the beginning, and I love both your styles. And I want to say, Ben, and show this off. Thank you, sir, for this nice box set of the Lord of the Rings trilogy here, hardcover. I love it. He knows I'm a big Lord
it
of the
was the
Rings
KGB fan. In case we will require Steve's services stateside from some point forward. We have an inside cell now.
And Adam, thanks for the young Jedi Knights.
Dude, those are awesome.
I appreciate that, helping me add to my collection.
Nice.
Oh, absolutely.
Thanks.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, this was a great sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
This was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. And like you said, we can have a deep conversation and point out aspects of the films or the shows or the books that we don't like or dislike. Adam mentioned the Old Republic. I love that era. It's phenomenal. There's just so much, and it brings us together, and we can have great conversations. And I think the Phantom Menace is the best out of the prequels. And Adam, you love Revenge of the Sith. And Ben, you're like, well, Attack of the Clones is now on my list. So, I mean, it's just fun. And we can have some laughs and enjoy it and talk about these characters and how passionate we are about it. And it's truly an amazing feeling. It truly is.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say, Ben, thank you so much for having me on again, and I always enjoy getting to talk with you. Like we've discussed Jedi Fallen Order a few months back, and hoping that we get to discuss Jedi Survivor soon, because I am really looking forward to that video
Oh,
game.
heck yeah.
But always enjoying the channel, always enjoying the content that you both of you guys put out. And Steve, I just want to say, you know, thank you for all the kind words, all the the hype, and being a big supporter of my channel. I totally support 100% like all the content that you're bringing out. And I'm really glad that it's just you're starting to grow, and I just can't wait to see you grow more as a channel. And just also, I'm really jealous of your setup, by the way.
Thank you.
It's like I'm jealous of that mall lockdown hardcover you got back there.
Oh,
So
yeah. I want to display it closer. I got them all right there. So,
but yeah, both of you guys are awesome. Yeah, definitely go check out Steve's channel, and always continue to support Ben's channel. Great content.
Guys, Steve, Adam, you are my window into the American culture that I never saw as a kid. My exposure was Breakfast Club and Goonies. We had this, great shining city on the hill through the Hollywood cinema. And my expectation was, when I was immigrating to America, that I'm going to get my own closet with my own little locker, and this hot blonde is going to come by. I'm going to say hello to her. You had this very, very romantic look and into the Western world, and now interacting with fans, and how you guys made bonds and relationships and friendships and beautiful, beautiful memories centered around Star Wars and other things that you enjoyed, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It kind of speaks this universal theme that we might have spoken different languages, we might have been growing up in different social climates and government regimes, but we all strive for the same things. We're leaning for the same ripe apple. Like, if Star Wars spoke to a person in the 80s in this part of the world, so can the next evolution of Star Wars to a younger fan here. And my expectation is younger girls and boys who are looking up to Rey and Kylo Ren and his redemption arc, they're going to grow up and they're going to lift those movies up, and they're going to mean something very, very special to them. Aside from the fact that Rey could be more than just a Palpatine, like, who cares? Just take that chunk out. There's so much more out there that they look forward to. Well, guys, I hope in the next podcast we will get to touch upon other subject as well. I really want to lean more into the books, into the video games as well, and collecting toys and that culture, because Star Wars is so much larger than the movies. It spawned this whole platform of different things that we can interact with and enjoy. And even if you never saw the movies, I talk to fans who only know Star Wars through the Clone Wars show, which is absolutely, absolutely amazing. It just speaks, it's a testament to how diverse and huge this medium is. And at the end of the day, more Star Wars is good Star Wars, because you get to find your niche. You get to sit down with your family, and with the comfort of just pressing one button, you can just dive into this wonderful universe and enjoy the things that, your family hopefully will like. Guys, thanks so much for checking our podcast out. I hope you had a really great time. Please follow all the links, check out the channels, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care, everyone.